Welcome to App Talk with Upptic, where we dig into the nitty-gritty of how to grow apps and games. We speak with industry experts about specific strategies, tools, and tactics they use to find success, and we keep you up to date with emerging news and trends in the ever-changing games, marketing, and technology ecosystem. My name is Xander Agosta, Director of Marketing at Upptic, and joining me today are my co-host,
Warren Woodward, co-founder of Upptic.
And our guest,
Benjamin Charbit. I'm the CEO of Darewise.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Benjamin.
Yeah, glad to have you on, Ben. We've been following Life Beyond a bit, and I think we have close relationship with the Animoca team, and definitely your studio and your game is like one of the most exciting titles that we've been following. So excited to dig into.
Very happy to be with you.
Yeah, excited to dig into kind of the state of Web3 games, and I think in particular, digging into the state of like the bear market, what keeps you guys motivated as a team, and kind of how people can build through in a more challenging period.
Yeah, let's talk about the hard stuff.
Yeah. How have you been holding up, just broadly speaking, in the bear market overall? I mean, it's a rough couple weeks, months for crypto folks.
So, I mean, I would say pretty well. Of course, I'm very mindful of everybody who got hurt in the process, and that's of course a big concern. I wish we were just experiencing happy days where everything is just fantastic and easy, but it's not. A couple of things maybe that I can say here. First, when you talk about the bear market and the crypto winter, or if it's is it or not, I think what is important in situations like that is two things. You look at the fundamentals of your industry and your market, and they are extremely good. I think when you go back to why are we doing this, why are we going to Web3, you see the purpose, and it's very exhilarating. And the second thing that you look at is, of course, okay, you in the landscape, and the more I think about it, the more I think we're turning it into an opportunity, where it starts to look like an opportunity for us. I think because of the massive hype that we've experienced in 2021 and 2022, there's been a lot of projects. Of course, it's great, but sometimes they're not necessarily as diligent, or they're lacking of the backbone and the structure that they need to be successful. But it was kind of so easy that there was a lot of cash grab, rug pull stuff that of course we don't like. And so in a situation like that, I think if you're if you have really good basics, and you know what you're doing, and you're strong, then it's actually a land of opportunity. So
right.
That's how we've been riding this wave. And of course, the FTX drama is a different story, independently from the bear market, right? I think it's a lesson of humility. We're not Web3 OGs. We're not native, and so when we arrived in this space, sometimes we felt a little bit, or all the time we felt ignorant, but sometimes we felt a little bit stupid, around the other people who were kind of explaining to us in sometimes in a condescending way, that we're just like super behind, and we did not really understand all the all the tricks about cryptos in this world. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, we didn't want to believe in any magic. So when we saw high APR, we ran away. When we saw centralization, we ran away. So I think this is the great lesson. Humility, be careful, and go back to the ethos of decentralization. Because every disaster that's been happening over the past 12 months is just an output or an outcome of over centralization. So tough time for sure, but great time to learn and to get better.
Yeah, I think that's well put, Ben. And I'm actually calling in. I'm in Miami this week. I'm out for a conference called Decentral Miami, and we really feel the pain of the bear market in this conference. There's like these giant halls that are just completely empty with people speaking. and it's like just night and day from last year. So that's the negative. But on the positive side, you know, we talked to a lot of Web3 game teams, and during the bull market, there was so much noise, so many low quality projects, people just trying to do cash grabs. And that's really kind of gone away. And we see definitely, if teams are still here building games with Web3 tech in them, it's usually because they, you know, it's cliche, but they actually have some sort of vision for how this can improve the product and how this can evolve gaming. So I think that's the upside of this. And Ben, you alluded to it, but yeah, go ahead.
I think overall, because it became a bit too easy. Some people just forgot a few fundamental rules. You know, like of course we hear about horrible stories of companies who lost their runway, their treasuries. You know, their cash, because their stable coins or tokens were staked somewhere, and you're like, but how? Like, you know, if I go back to my general business management classes where, you know, they were always teaching us, you know, you don't invest with the company treasury unless you have a massive excess of it, but this is used to pay their salaries, so of course you can't, you know, this has to sit in a bank or at least in something, because is the bank really safe? You never know. But but be careful with this, and I think that because it felt, you know, I remember having conversation with people in the team. They were like, "Oh, I put some tokens here, I staked here, and I'm getting 18% APR right now. It's insane." And you're like, "Okay, but you understand that there's the risk reward combination. Like, if you're getting 18%, there's a risk.
It's a high risk asset. Whether or not you know that's a high risk asset."
And people just lost a little bit this connection with some fundamentals. And I understand, because we're in such a disruptive industry right now that in a way it's hard to figure out what should stay as it was and what you can completely challenge. And so I guess this is where, you know, you can sometimes get hurt in the process. And but hopefully this doesn't destroy the trust that all of us have been working so hard to build. And of course it's hurt, but I hope just not. I just hope that the damage will be reasonable, and then we'll be able to recover from that. Because again, the fundamentals are so good. The future looks so bright. It's just that we went a little bit backwards in this, you know, trust building.
Yeah, I think that the saying goes, if you can't identify where the yield is coming from, you are the yield. And that was quite literal in the case of FTX, where like the users' funds were actively being loaned out. But just to stay focused on why we're here, to learn more about your studio, Ben, you alluded to this, but that your team is not born of Web3 originally. Can you kind of take us back a little bit in your career, your path to here, and the origin of Darewise as a studio, and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. So I have a pretty funny career, because I started my career as an investment banker, where I used to do large cap mergers and acquisition, and quickly, mostly in the entertainment industry. But I was a big fan of gaming. When I was in high school, I used to be an esport player at the beginning of esport in France.
What game?
Really competitive. Counter-Strike.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
Super competitively. That was kind of my life at some point. But you know, making a career in esport at this time was really a challenge, and we started to see a few sponsorships, and that was really the real beginning. So when, you know, went to college, started working as a banker, but quickly, basically around 2010, when we started seeing, you know, this kind of second era of the startup time, where you see snaps and companies like that, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing working with my, you know, three-piece suit in this environment where I didn't really feel like I was creating any substantial value. The job was quite interesting, and I really loved the challenge. I loved the people, super smart. But really, I don't know, I was missing a purpose.
Right.
as a big fan of gaming, I was lucky because I met the CEO of Ubisoft, as we were also that was thanks to my job. I told him my story, and he offered me to join the company. So that's how I started there with no background, like as a game developer. I started driving the strategy for the online games division. That was a very new practice where I met a lot of the people that I'm very lucky to work with at Darewise today. And one thing led to another. I'll skip this part, but I ended up becoming a game director and one of the creative directors on the Assassin's Creed franchise. So completely different from my previous experience. Amazing. Ubisoft was such an open-minded company and really gave the chance to people, because of whatever opportunity would show up, and they would need different type of skill set, and that led me to eventually start Darewise. When we really, with a few friends, and especially with Sam, my co-founder, our CTO, and someone who has been with us and who's now with us full time, Vince, who's our chief strategy and product. We really started to dream of this kind of large scale world. Before we were talking about the metaverse, I read about the metaverse in 2014 when I read my first book of Neil Stephenson, and that's how I started to be like, this is what I want to build. I believe the future of our digital existence is going to be in this world. And so we started to go there, met with some really interesting guys at a company that you now know called Improbable. And that's how things started to happen. And we opened the studio in 2018.
So you're from the good old investment banking to AAA game director pipeline. Just
the good old, as you say. It's funny because of course when you I tried to always mix both experiences, not in the pure investment side, but the economic part of this world has always been fascinating to me, because I've been a big believer that free market is what connects people through meeting supply and demand. This is how you feel innovation, entrepreneurship, and then you start seeing things that you never thought. Like you when you design a game and you want it to be very much of a sandbox, the marketplace, the ability for one person who has a need to find someone who can address this need, this is when you start seeing the real sandbox happen. So super interesting to be able to get our hands dirty on something like that, and then a long journey to eventually get where we are.
Makes sense. So can we talk a little bit for the uninitiated about what Life Beyond is, how early in the Darewise life cycle it came about, and at one point did you decide to make it a Web3 game? We'll start there, and then we can continue to interrogate that line of questioning, but start there.
Yeah. So the high level view is that Life Beyond is a AAA MMORPG, but new generation, and we can talk about it. But I would say that's the entry point. The goal of this MMORPG, it really ambitions to become a fiction where we can live. And this is because we're all MMO natives at Darewise. We've been in this world, EVE Online, Star Wars Galaxies, Ultima, EverQuest, World of Warcraft. We've been, in a way, digital citizens in this world, and we've had a first flavor of what it feels like to be there, to have friends, like have something that would be as meaningful as a job when you're a guild leader or a guild officer. But eventually there was always this kind of wake-up call, hey, it's just a game, because you don't own anything. There's no space for entrepreneurship, no space for innovation in these worlds, because there's the whole ecosystem is so closed that you're obviously kind of very often you have to get away from it. You have to move on to something else.
Right.
But for me, I really built substantial relationship in this world, and so we wanted to create a world where this time you could have the same type of fun, because that would, of course, be the reason why you would get there in the first place, like we would get in World of Warcraft in the first place, because the gameplay was extremely fun. But you would stick for something else, and you would stick because you would start building either a social presence, but it could also be an economic presence in these worlds. And this is where moving to Web3 became quite inevitable to us, even though we didn't start this project as a Web3 project. But when in 2021, early 2021, when we discovered smart contracts, the Ethereum blockchain, NFTs, then it was just the perfect solution for us to truly empower our users through digital property rights, but also finally to be able to reward the network effect, which is the main component of a success in a game. It's like in an MMO game, because of course no one wants to enter an empty lobby, no one wants to enter an empty world, and the fact that there is this presence from other players dramatically contributes to the quality of your own experience. So this is the pure definition of a network effect. Now, how do we reward this? Then previously you were not really able to, but now because of NFT, because of blockchain technologies, we can.
Right, that makes a ton of sense. So you sort of alluded to this, but like, in what regard have your decision to build on the Web3 ecosystem like impacted your designs? We talked about this being the next generation of MMO. How is the fact that this is now on the blockchain really, what are the design decisions that have flowed through now ownable assets and programmable contracts that are like really impactful to your game and to your ecosystem?
So the first obvious one is the fact that your assets are immutable, and so of course when you're constantly building, when you build MMOs, usually your game is never going to be balanced, so you always have to rebalance it. You change style. So very often every time you have an update from Blizzard, some characters get pumped, others get nerfed. It's I love this legend, that Vitalik started the Ethereum blockchain because he got his World of Warcraft character nerfed, and he was so upset because of that. So of course now, because by nature these assets are supposed to be immutable, you design very differently. You make sure that you're not designing something that can just break the game forever. The second thing is that we have to today think of how we can still manage a form of control on the economy, on the in-game economy, because there's a high chance that it's going to be unbalanced. How we're going to make sure that if there's a massive flaw in the design, this doesn't destroy the experience for everyone. And it's not because we want to be over-centralizing, it's because unfortunately, no matter how good we are at simulating things, it's just past 30 years of experience driving really some of these massive games in the team that lead you to, and you don't even need to have a lot of experience, actually. You just need to read, whatever books and content was published by all these great MMO designers. It's impossible. So you have to find a way to be able to interact with this economy. The other thing is that we like to think of ourselves as also an important player in driving the massive adoption from the traditional gaming community to Web3. And right now, as you can tell, it's not, we have a long way, we have a lot of work to do. So we also had to come up with designs and token structure that would make it extremely friendly for Web2 players who don't really want to go through, setting up a wallet and don't want to hear about blockchain, and an audience that loves this shit, that loves the whole Web3 component, DeFi, GameFi, and I'm part of them. So finding something that to be able to serve and satisfy everyone is challenging, but this is what I think we're doing pretty successfully on paper, at least on paper.
Yeah, Ben, you touched on two good topics. I'd like to go deeper on each of them. First, economics, and then on growth and adoption of the player base. For economics, so I mean, anyone who knows me, no one is more bullish on Web3 gaming overall than I am. But one of the things I reflect on a lot, both for the teams that we supported at Upptic and then some of the building that I'm doing in my free time, is arguably there's been no, to your point, there's been no proven long-term sustainable model for a Web3 economy yet on market. You know, we come from more of a free-to-play background originally, where it's like you can kind of copy paste existing models. And I'm just curious, A, do you agree with that thesis? And does it keep you up at night? Just sort of how early we are and sort of the lack of long-term viable economic models.
I mean, we have to face the reality that we can't say for sure that there is an outstanding, you know, Web3 game economy today. Like I think most of the time these were not intentional. So I'm among those who believe that, you know, Sky Mavis is going to find ways to work it out with Axie. I'm still amazed by what they managed to achieve. It's really impressive, and so, you know, there are a lot of people calling pod genomics a bit too easily and too often, and I don't think this is exactly what's happening. But there was there was maybe a wrong, you know, or maybe, you know, again, as usual, because it was a bit too easy, we thought it could be true. But yes, I don't believe that play to earn is a viable model as how it was defined. Play and earn is absolutely, but play to earn, which I think defined as the sole motivation is that you're playing to earn something.
Right, or at least the primary.
Yeah, I think that the problem is that, you know, this is not, it's you know, it's about, you know, zero-sum game and stuff like that. Like how does it work? If I go to a store, sometimes someone has to spend money. You know, we can't just earn money all of us earn money from the store.
Well, I mean, back to what we talked about up top, you know, the yield has to come from somewhere. And in the case of really play to earn, there's a dependency on on everlasting growth, which of course is unsustainable. And to your point, exactly. Like we work with the Sky Mavis team. They're one of the teams that we support most closely, and we're very bullish on what they have planned for the next phase of Axie. They learned a lot from being the first.
Exactly. So this is exactly my belief. You know, it's like, yeah, so far we know that. The second thing is that I think there's also been the mistake in the fact that we have taken currencies as investment vehicles. Well, of course, they can't really be both. If it's a currency, by definition, it has to remain rather stable. Otherwise, this tool that is supposed to power the transaction, you know, fuel the transaction within an economy, just becomes out of control and ends up creating a lot of inflation, and so basically hurting, you know, people who can't afford to keep up with the rise of prices. And at the same time, we have speculation on these assets. So this is a problem, and this is where it's very difficult to have a single token system, because the problem is you want to have an investment vehicle, because it's also important. You're building a business, and this business has to, you know, grow in value over time. And this is why you have a governance token. But at the same time, you need to have a currency that is used to power the transaction within your economy with the less friction as possible. You know, be able to do it very instantly. So you need a utility token. And now that you've said this, because on top of that, we're in 2022, soon in 2023, with a very different market. Now you also need to find utilities for all of these tokens, right? So even your governance token can't just be about a governance right. Like it has to be more than that. Otherwise, the value starts to be really challenged. So it's definitely complicated right now to figure out the best, you know, economic design or tokenomics more. But and I don't think we can say for sure that there is one out there that is just killing it, that fixed everything. But I see a few stuff that are interesting and that are very worth you know, keeping an eye on.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your thoughts there. Let's pivot to that second topic that you already kind of alluded to, which is growth and adoption of the player base. So this is like Upptic's core work. We work with a number of Web3 developers, like from very small teams on up to Axie, all about this journey of A, how do you grow with a Web3 native audience, and then B, how do you expand beyond that to millions of regular players outside of the Web3 ecosystem. Would love to just maybe start with kind of your thesis for Life Beyond and how you plan to address both of those audiences of Web3 natives and traditional players.
Yeah, and of course, I have to remain very humble right now. Those are just assumptions because we're still super early. We have at this point we have 1 million NFT holders, which is not too bad, but it's still a very low number when you compare to the very successful traditional games. So our take on that is that first, and it sounds a little bit candid, but yeah, you need to build a really good game. And this is obviously the first focus. If there's only one, this is the focus. Build a really good game. It might not satisfy the Web3 audience because some Web3 players are actually, they're crypto gamers. They're really obsessed. And there's no judgment here, but this is what really they're driven by, the whole play and earn mechanic. How can they get the best assets so that they can stake, they can earn stuff from that. And of course, if you're focusing on the core gameplay and not so much on this part of it might not really cater to them. So that is really like focus on building a really good game. And it's obviously the hardest thing to do. It's so difficult to do this. The second thing is that right now it's still too complicated for a traditional gamer who's not really into Web3 stuff to go and interact with these games. You have to create a wallet, you have to sign transactions, you don't really know what it means. It's a little bit scary. What I think is that we need to be in a position soon where we stop talking about Web2 and Web3. It's just this game, and people come to play this game because it's fun.
Right.
And yeah, of course, this game has also this insane benefit, which is that you own your assets. And if you want to do that, just get a wallet, and then you can move all these assets on chain and then they're absolutely yours. So
yeah, I think we're fully in agreement there. Like we got something backwards in the early days of Web3 gaming, which is like waving a flag about this technology and these terms that we use inside the kind of crypto and Web3 bubble. But we need to take a step back and realize there's still largely negative sentiment in the mainstream. And by a game saying like, this is an NFT game or this is a Web3 game, it's actually actively repulsing players. Whereas to your point, the underlying technology and functionality, like if you can own and trade your assets, that's all good. Like people love that, but they just don't like the cultural baggage associated with Web3 at this point in time. Absolutely. So I think the more we can put that in the background.
If you look at history for us in the game industry, I was there at the beginning of free to play, and we were experiencing exactly the same thing. Even though the value proposition of the free to play was not always that good compared to what I think Web3 can bring, but it took Supercell with Clash of Clans, it took Riot Games with League of Legends, so that people stopped thinking that free-to-play games were very poor quality games.
Right.
And then they stopped even caring about the fact that it was free-to-play. You just played them because they were great. And that's all that matters.
I fully agree. And I would also add, I think it almost took like a generational change. Like a generation of kids that grow up with free-to-play accessible as they started playing games versus like us, a lot of us that are a few years older had a natural repulsion to free to play because it pushed against expectations we had of like you buy a game off the shelf and you have the whole thing. But like if you're coming to it fresh, if you're a young person, you just see these options. The value proposition of free to play, I think, is very clear if you don't come to it with that bias from like your past experiences. And I think it'll be very similar with Web3 gaming as a new generation comes up. It's like you can own your collectibles or you cannot own them. Well, of course, I'd like to own them.
For sure, but that also requires us developers to change a few things. A lot of the NFT, world was built around speculation and FOMO,
Right.
scarcity, which of course is great to drive up value, but it also goes a little bit against that sentiment right now. You know, if you start making it so inaccessible because there are only X thousand NFTs that you can mint, or and that so because when we started making this transition, some people were came to advise us and be like, hey, you need to. So what you can do is sell PFPs as avatars, and there are only going to be 10,000. I'm like, well, what do you mean? So we have 10,000, like maximum, we have 10,000 players. Yeah, but then people are going to fight to buy them. And I'm like, but okay, let's forget the money for a minute. I used to be, I used to work on Assassin's Creed, the Division.
Mhm.
I used to enjoy making games for millions of players.
Right.
Our chief creative, Mark Cabinet, was the game director of Assassin's Creed Unity, of Dying Light 2. We like to make games for a large audience, not for a few, a small number of happy fews who manage to have the money or to hear about the thing before everybody else, so that they could, they could put their hands on the assets, and that now, if you want to play, you have to rent your assets to them. So I understand the model. It can be pretty appealing, but at the same time, this has never been our motivation at Darewise. We are trying to do something that is bigger than us, where we can gather everybody in a world where we can build stuff together. So of course, it goes dramatically against the idea of limiting the access to the game through the ownership of an NFT.
Right. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, that's basically my core critique of this entire ecosystem since the beginning. So I mean, you touched about this a little bit, but so obviously you expect Life Beyond has to be a good game first. Where are you in the development life cycle, and like what are you doing to ensure that it is the good quality game that everyone has now the high expectations for?
So some people would say we've been working on this for a long time because we started in 2018, but we were a small team. But we're still pretty early in the sense that we still have so much to do. We had a pre-alpha that was running, not a pre-alpha, an open alpha. Pre-alpha was before, but open alpha that ran until October. Amazing. We had 20,000 players. It was very interesting to collect all of this feedback. And what we were doing here is what we have been doing for the past few years, which is we always tested the game with real players. We've done some crazy stuff at Darewise. I think it was in 2019, we would onboard every single alpha player, pre-alpha player through a 15-minute video conference. Like we would spend 15 minutes with every single player to tell them about the game, tell them about what they can do, what's not working, understand their motivation. And this is what's really great, when you push it further and you go really fully into Web3, is that your community is here, and you don't just build something and then you get their feedback. It's you build with them, so you make decisions with them. And we've done it recently on a very strategic decision. Like we involved our founders, the ones who hold the founder key in the decision process on Discord. So Life Beyond is also a game that is so much bigger than anything that we've ever done before, because it's not just a game, it's a whole world where you can be whoever you want. So think of like a game that has at the same time multiple games. It's a management game, it's an action game, it's a driving game. So it has all of these things that we have to build. So we still have a good time of development ahead of us. But, and this is the last thing on this point, we're also understanding that now a game is more than just a software. A game like Life Beyond, it's a game server. And so, which means that you can interact with this game server that's going to be running obviously 24/7 through a lot of different channels. Every time we think of like the Unreal Engine client, but you can think of a website, a mobile app, where you can have different types of the experience available on this platform. When you do crafting, you don't really need a 3D UI and rendering in the virtual world to do that. You can do it on your phone,
Makes sense.
and while in the metro. traveling from one area to another. So those are the things that we're developing right now. And 2023 is going to be insane from a content standpoint, because we're going to start pushing things from everywhere, like Unreal, web, mobile. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, makes sense. It's exciting. I'm excited to see what comes down the pike in that regard. We talked about this a little bit at the top, but I wanted to get a thoughts about this in the context specifically of your game. How has the downturn in crypto affected your go-to-market strategy? And is it something that you are, how are you thinking about the downturn in the context of how you're bringing your product to market?
So this is one of the topics where we actually consulted with our community of founders, because again, what is fantastic when you get into Web3 and you really start to understand that it's actually not so much about technology, but it's an ideology more than anything. And the big ideological changes that you're not so much in your consumer customer relationship, but customer owner. So they're stakeholders, when you do something successfully, they benefit from it. If you suck, they will be hurt by it. So we really consult with them. We're like, hey, we were considering dropping our NFTs this week, but then there are FTX stuff happened. We're super bullish on what we're doing. We think it's amazing, but what do you guys think? And we got a lot of interesting feedback. We kind of almost put in proposed informally with them. So first, you have this relationship. Okay, so this is very strong because it really helps you also understanding more the dynamic of the current market. The second thing is obviously we have to be more reasonable. Projects don't sell out within an hour. They don't always sell out within an hour. Shout out to our friends at Mighty Bear, because they did an insane launch of their heroes. I think it was yesterday, and I think they minted the 5,000 of them 24 minutes. So see, there are still some beautiful stuff happening, and to see this community being so engaged. But of course, right now, our approach is to be more reasonable, to lower a little bit our expectation, to also work harder in onboarding key opinion leaders and other communities on the project. And it's not because we were putting any more money. It's not about the money. It's just about spending the time, to connect with these communities. And again, this is where you start seeing the benefit of the network effect at the different scale, at the different level.
Yeah, Ben, I mean, you touched on a good point, which is I think you're expanding a lot on what works to reach the kind of Web3 native user base. And similar thoughts from our team is like when we're going after that player base, it's a lot on partnerships with existing robust, like-minded Web3 communities, more organic, non-paid marketing functions.
Yeah.
But as you said earlier, I mean, the scale available of active players that are in Web3, it's pretty small, especially in the bear market. And to your point, like of these games that are focusing on how can we activate 10,000 players. I mean, like the larger games that we're servicing in our Web2 portfolio, we acquire that many players daily before lunch for some of them. So like, how do you think about obviously, like early on, you're going to be focused more on what is that core user base as early adopters and advocates. How do you think about transitioning from that era of life beyond to opening up to mainstream player base, and what might differ when you're moving into that phase of growth?
I guess I'll have to come back to see you guys when we'll be at that point, because we'll have experienced more. At this point, all I can give you is just a few assumptions or gut feeling. The thing is that usually what I believe very much in terms of product management and marketing frameworks are what is called the high expectation customer. So rather than trying to kind of fix my product so that I can cater to those persons who are not interested or who drop, to double down and understanding better, to double down on the features that are apparently successfully with a group, with an audience, and to understand that high expectation audience much better. Because I think that with this, you can already scale to a really large number. I do believe that if you find 5,000 people who enjoy your product, your games, you can scale that 5,000, and you really spend some time understanding who they are, why they like it, where they are, where we can find more of them. Then I think you can go from 5,000 to 500,000. Now, if you need to go to 5 million, indeed, this is where you have to change. You have to expand and to make it to of course cater to this other type of audience, because now you need more persona. But I think it's important to also understand that in Web3 you can stay with these 500,000 players and make it a really successful business forever, which is very different from a traditional free-to-play model where you just need to funnel millions of players in your game. Are not going to stick for a long time. There was one counter example to that, which was EVE Online with 100,000 MAU, could just sustain a massive success for like 20 years. So how will we go from 500K to 5 millions? Right now, I don't know much, unless the fact, one really important fact, which is that it should not feel like it's Web3.
Right.
So one thing I wanted to touch on as we were wrapping up here, well, we had Robbie Young on the podcast, CEO of Animoca, got it like 6 months ago, a year ago. And one of the things he would always tout is like, oh, we have this big portfolio of games, we can make them interoperable. So question, to what extent are you using the fact that you're part of Animoca Brands to think about interoperability across your games? Is it something you've considered yet?
Yeah, well, follow us on our socials. I think you'll see. Well, it's already been happening. So the first thing is, I think people are, of course, it's great that we're all fantasizing and dreaming of the interoperability of the assets where I have my character and I move super seamless way from one experience to another. I'm sure one day we'll eventually get there, but of course we're not there yet. But interoperability can happen in so many different formats. The first one is, of course, you have token from one game that can be used in another one. So this is the first form of interoperability. And so if you come in mint the Agent Zero jacket in Life Beyond this week, you'll be able to use a bunch of other tokens from other Animoca properties, for instance. That and from you can be able to use your Ape coin, stuff like that. So that's the first. The second is interoperability of utilities. When you have a utility because you own an asset from one community, one project, you're able to use it on another one. So it's not necessary that because you have a jacket there that you're going to carry, wear the same jacket in Sandbox, but maybe this jacket the fact that you own it will give you a lot of other utilities in Sandbox, even though it was a Live Beyond jacket. We've started, cross-marketing because we believe in that and we want this. I think this will be the reason why people will stop churning off our games after some time, because now we'll stop being so defensive and protective of our own audience, and we'll be like, it's fine, just go over there, enjoy actually the assets that you already own, and come back later, rather than keeping you within our ecosystem. So I believe that Robbie is absolutely right, but it's going to take some time, to get to a full interoperability. We don't even have any standards yet. There are a couple of initiatives right now. There's OMA that actually Robbie is pretty instrumental with. And there's another one. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think it's going to be a great benefit for us.
Yeah, and one of the areas of interoperability that I'm always looking at things from a marketing landscape as well, like from our work. One thing that I think is sort of undervalued for the promise of interoperability is actually using it as a targeting mechanism. So if you can build support for a game piece or an NFT from another collection, and that has high overlap with like the target audience that you'd like in your game.
Yeah.
I think it's a great like viral marketing.
I mean, we're already doing it.
Yeah.
We have Cool Cats, we have Bored Ape in Live Beyond, and so why are we doing this? It's not just because, you know, it's a growth hacking mechanic. We're also doing it because we feel what I love about Web3 is this idea of right now everybody's kind of a partner. You know, we can all be friends. We can all try to figure out together how to succeed. I love the guys of Block Lords, even though they're doing another game in Metaverse that could be seen as a competitor of Life Beyond. But you know, I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. I'm sure we can create some insanely fun stuff together. And so, of course, you can cross-fertilize all these communities who, again, you know, you're enriching the value, your own value proposition by expanding and by building more partnerships with other properties rather than being so closed and, you know, so defensive.
Okay, last question. If you're, what is some advice you can give to any developers or publishers who are either currently building in Web3 space or are considering going into the Web3 space? What's the, like, you know, very high level, do it, do it not, and why?
No, and especially in light of the current kind of macro conditions, you know, if you're building today,
So first, I will welcome them with a very warm heart because we need more, and we benefit from having more people like that, and in the future. So honestly, I don't think there's any reason to freak out and to be like, are you sure this is so risky and so dangerous, especially if you're a game developer, because at the end of the day, you're building a game, and this is just, it should only be a detail, you know, that you're running it on a blockchain or not. So go ahead, my friend, you know, and you're actually gonna find a community that is surprisingly extremely supportive, very often a bit more than how the Web2 world was and has been with, you know, it's more like with more competition. Now, something that I think is important because of the current market condition is to be well funded, and this is really it's a hard part, obviously, but it's important because then you can make sure that you're really focusing on building something that is sustainable and not trying to get to any like short-term wins and low-hanging fruit because you need to, you know, get in there, like improve a little bit your traction or your acquisition just so you can have better metrics to pitch investors. This can be you know, harmful eventually. So if you're moving to Web3, make sure you have you know, a good amount of cash in the bank, because it, you know, the number of investors is reduced right now, might still take a little bit of time for them to recover, and you need to have enough runway so you can make the right decisions.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. There was a moment in time where, you know, you could fund your whole business a year ago off of like an NFT launch, but that moment's passed. You need
no more.
To,
and you know, it's yeah, you could, but it was obviously not a great thing. You know, that people buy your NFT and that it serves as a metric to show traction is obviously a good thing, because it's great that, you know, your community put some skin in the game, but still, if you base all of all the, you know, funding of the development on that, this is really risky and it's not really fair.
Right.
I think today, when we push an NFT outside, it has to have utility on the spot or very quickly, you know, not so much like take it now and eventually you'll get a benefit, you know. No, we need to be more upfront now about what is the benefit, what does it come.
Yeah,
I think if you do it through, you know, on these trying to leverage a speculative desire, I think you're set for failure.
Yes, especially now. Awesome. Well, thanks for walking us through Web3 gaming in the crypto downturn. A lot of really incisive advice there. We're going to move on to our last section, which is app of the week. I'll go to Warren first so you can see how it's done. Warren, do you have an app this week?
I do, yeah. I dove into a new Web3 game this week that I've been having a lot of fun with. And I really want to recommend it because it's doing a few things that I like as far as like onboarding players in a friendly way. So the project is called The Beacon, and it's built on Arbitrum chain. And for just a couple of notes on it, let me pull up my notes here. So the core model of what they're building, I'd say it's a mix of, it's like a roguelike, kind of like Hades style game, but with like kind of cuter pixel art graphics. So kind of like action RPG, roguelike gameplay mixed with like an Animal Crossing kind of collecting and customization aspect. And it's a lot of things that I think work really well with kind of the current state of what you can do and what people get about Web3 ownable assets. And I wanted to call out, you can play their demo. They're doing a few things that I think are good for introducing people. It's free to play to try it, and you don't have to buy into the NFT ecosystem when the full game launches. There's going to be a full free to play way to keep playing. But they're also doing some novel things I like with their NFT launch that I think are much more sustainable and could be, you know, if you took like a fresh approach to NFT launches for gaming, I think some of these things make sense. So their player collection, I think they call it like founding characters. They're taking an approach where I think it's like a 3-week period, and there's not a fixed mint, just you can mint as many as you want. They're $40 USD, and basically just whatever is minted during that period is that collection. And I like it because it doesn't drive FOMO. It basically naturally adapts to the market of how much do people want these. And it's a price point that is comparable with buying a premium game. And it basically unlocks like, you know, ability to get rare items, discounts on future things in the game. And it's a reasonable value proposition without being like complete play to win either. So I think, you know, as we touched on in our conversation with Ben, people are still kind of playing with the knobs of what is optimal tuning for ownable assets in a free to play game. But I really like this game, what they've shown so far. And it's also something where you can play it before you decide if you buy anything, which is also something I really advocate for in gaming. So yeah, check it out. The Beacon on Arbitrum.
That was a lot of the buzzwords I like, and so maybe I'll go.
Yeah, me too. I'm totally running for it.
You might have just sold them to new people. All right, Benjamin, how about you? Did you have an app this week?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be as fun as you. It's going to be a bit more boring, but actually super sleek design. I'm a big productivity nerd. I love this thing, probably because I had to love it because my life became a little bit complicated. And so I discovered this new productivity app, which is it's called AMIE, AMIE .so. They raised a pretty big seed around like $7 million or something like that. And they're building a really cool productivity app, which is a to-do app combined with a calendar combined with a CRM. And I don't know if you guys do time blocking or stuff like that, but I use all of it. You know, I have a fantastical Things 3 Todoist. I tried all of them. I'm quite obsessed with it. But this one, I've started to talk about it to everyone around me. So if you guys struggle a little bit with managing your time and how to be more efficient, which is great for a better work-life balance, I can tell you. Well, go check it out because it looks pretty unique.
Yeah, this
I
looks
need
awesome.
that very badly. I'm into it.
Well, yeah, because I use like Workflowy for to-do lists, and then Google Calendars, and this looks like it's just both, which I mean, honestly, sounds great. Yeah, I think again we'll check them out.
As long as you have a system that you're happy with, that's great. But me, it's like I don't know, it's like a PlayStation something. I just love training people.
Love it. That's a good one.
Yeah,
Xander, how about you? Do you have an app this week, Xander?
I do. I have a real app. I've been doing like terrible apps because I ran out of apps, but I actually have a good one this week. So this weekend I hung out with my buddy who works in the wine industry, and he recommended Raisin, which is a natural wine app. It's a two-sided marketplace. So what it does is you can go and create your profile. If you're in natural wine, there's a whole section that I'm not touching, but then you can find winemakers that you like who based on geolocation and different filters, and you can find the venues where they sell natural wine. And so as if you're at all into natural wine, Raisin is like the god tier natural wine finding app, which can do some traveling soon, and very excited to bust this out. That's my app.
It's a really well-rounded portfolio of app of the week that we had.
So I'm the game developer, but I'm the most boring of all of them.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Benjamin. Really appreciate all your insight on this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. If someone wants to get a hold of you or learn more about Darewise or Life Beyond, how can they do that?
So Twitter, we changed recently our Twitter on Life Beyond, but just at Life Beyond. We have it now because we had to fight for it to get it back. At Life Beyond on Twitter, on Instagram, if you guys want to see some cool art, on Discord, obviously, where our community of 40,000 people is. You can follow me as well. I've been more and more active lately. I'm at charbit.eth on Twitter, and I'll be sharing some really cool stuff from Life Beyond and other projects as well, because I'm a community guy. That's what drew me there. So I'm really enjoying this part of the current dynamic.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. Warren, take us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, Ben. And I'll just give an extra plug here. If any of the listeners have not actually seen Life Beyond, just look it up. If you ignore everything else that we talked about on this podcast, I think just look up Life Beyond, check out some of the trailers they have that showcase some of the in-game engine and what the gameplay is looking like. I think you'll be very impressed, and we definitely need more teams like Darewise putting like really high quality games into the Web3 ecosystem. So Ben, definitely a pleasure to highlight some of your team's work.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, our pleasure. On that note, the podcast was brought to you as always by the good folks here at Upptic. Here at Upptic, we do all things to help games grow. And as we mentioned, we're about 50-50 these days, working in the traditional gaming space in PC and mobile and for Web3 games. And now more than ever, it's really challenging, I think, to find an optimal way to bring a Web3 game to market with some of these forces that we've been talking about. So we're a team that's happy to help both with the strategy portion, but also the execution of the organic marketing to the Web3 natives and scaling that marketing in a very data-driven way to mainstream players once the game is more mature. So we're always happy to help with and meet teams. We love talking to builders. You can always reach out to us and book some time at upptic.com. That's upptic.com.
Talk soon.